Hi, Ursula Cullen here from FlowForma Process Automation. I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, our 4 top predictions for process automation in 2021. Before we get started, I would like to take care of some housekeeping and offer a few tips for viewing today's webinar. Please note that the webinar is being recorded, and if you have any issues during the call, you can email info@flowforma.com for assistance. Throughout the webinar, your lines will be muted, and we encourage you to use the chat box to ask any questions. These will then be answered at the end of the webinar. After the webinar, we will send you a link to the recording, and we would really appreciate it if you could fill in the short feedback form at the end. So today, I'm delighted to be joined by Paul Stone, Product Strategist at FlowForma, and Andy Ross, Technical Lead at Appetite for Business. With 27 years in the IT industry, Paul is a highly accomplished IT professional who is the go-to product expert from both a business and technical perspective. Paul works closely with FlowForma clients, supporting them in the delivery of FlowForma Business Process Management tool and helping organizations automate and streamline their business processes. As technical lead at Appetite for Business, Andy helps businesses harness digital transformation through process digitalization and data management. With 14 years working in IT, Andy has acquired a solid technical know-how while working with Microsoft technologies and building innovative workflows. So today, Paul and Andy will discuss their top 4 predictions for process automation in 2021. So let's get straight ahead with their first prediction.
Thanks, Ursula. So just on the first prediction, it's the great lockdown of 2020 will make the drive for automation in 21 both inevitable and irreversible. Certainly in 2020, it's brought a lot of changes for everyone, with the vast majority of people working remotely, work processes and the way people collaborate together has needed to change. And companies need to automate to maintain competitiveness and stay afloat. So what that means is that automation has to be applied across the board so that you're not just automating one area of the business. You're looking at, how you can improve customer experience. Supply chain management is a key thing right now, and also how you can improve employee experience and so on. And yet the infrastructure that you were using previously for automation or to help you manage your business, that's been left behind in the office. Now you're working remotely. It's a whole new world. And how are you going to do that? It's a challenge that everybody's had to face in 2020 and will have to maintain, looking at this problem in 21 as well. I guess, Andy, you've seen that too in terms of the adoption of cloud technology in the clients to help relieve this challenge.
Yeah, kind of just to elaborate on what you said there, Paul, you're right. I mean, a lot of businesses were forced into making rapid changes in technology throughout 2020. I think now they've got an opportunity to take advantage of that this year and properly plan out how they want to work with cloud computing and process automation as well. So now's the time to really properly plan out how you want to work with this technology. I think there was also a recent report from Zendesk customer service portal. They found that 75% of decision makers say COVID-19 has accelerated adoption of digital technology, and that is something that we're seeing. There's a rapid rise in questions and queries with regard to it.
Yeah, certainly, and I think now is the time to make that move and prepare yourself for 21 and all the changes that are going to happen, because really you can prepare now. The technologies exist right today to make that transformation, to take this as an opportunity to improve your business, automate your processes, introduce digital platforms, and use them effectively to allow those remote workers to remain productive. Which leads us, I guess, on to our next prediction, which is the digital transformation at more than 3/4 of enterprise will focus on automation. Well, for sure, automation is a big driver. Automation is you can show measurable results of digital transformation by automating your business processes. But you know what? It comes in two stages. You have to first put a platform in place that's going to support that automation, and then start automating those processes on top of that. And ultimately, process automation drives the business towards achieving its business goals, and you can measure that progress and use that to further investment. I guess, Andy, you'd concur with that, and I guess getting that platform in place is a key thing.
Yeah, that's going to be a common theme throughout this webinar. I think having that platform in place, because it is very important to make sure that those foundations are there. I think to go into a little bit more detail in terms of maybe some examples, I think process automation can be more effectively used offshore as one example to ensure safety. One example could be a fully responsive form to avoid or significantly lessen the need for contact. You can give offshore installation managers or OIMs more control with regard to how they deal with their processes, removing the need for a lot of manual admin heavy tasks. I think also, being quite brief here, automation can also improve business processes in relation to certain enterprises who are working with additional paperwork that stem from Brexit bureaucracy as well.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
That's there's a
Yeah.
lot of paperwork. We don't need to go into too much detail with regard to that. And
I,
sorry, Paul, go for it.
No, I think your point is that there's a lot of opportunity right there, and there really
Absolutely.
is. I mean, we see it all the time that there's so many manual processes still in place, and we'll talk a little bit about those later on. But certainly, Andy, like we see the same thing. There's loads of
Yeah.
opportunity, and right now there's a reason to do it. There's a reason to press ahead. There's a push to make it all happen. So what I'm going to do briefly is just talk a little bit about the FlowForma product, which is all about um, making that move to process automation more easy. So what is FlowForma? Well, FlowForma is a process automation platform, and it combines three aspects together. So forms for data collection, workflow for task management, and then also document generation and document management as well. So really, any kind of business process solution out there has to be able to handle these three things: workflow, forms, and document generation, document management. And FlowForma does that. Uh, but it does it in a different way, I guess, to most other systems out there, in that it's a three-in-one tool, so that you can configure your solutions all in one tool without needing to integrate multiple tools together. And it was really designed for business users from the get-go. So it's actually a no-code tool. What does that mean? Well, really, it means that you don't have to be an IT person to build out a solution. So if you have a digital process right now that you might have documented in a spreadsheet or in a procedure document, you can actually take that document and start building out that process yourself using FlowForma. And it's something that's really quite different in the market, where other tools are designed for what's known as rapid application development. What does that mean? Well, you can build things very quickly in them relative to actually the traditional approach, but they do require some IT involvement as well. One of those tools, as we're talking about the Office 365 world, is the Power Platform, Power Automate, and Power Apps. But they do require, I guess, more technical skill than FlowForma. And also, the technical skill level increases the more complex your business process is. But at the end of the day, if you want to automate at scale, which is to digitize a large number of processes, a tool that's easier to use, that gets faster results, might be the better choice for you. Now, Andy, I don't know if you'd have some opinions on that one.
I guess with FlowForma, the whole no-code bit kind of sparks a lot of interest as well. The ease of use.
Yeah, that's right. It's a kind of a different approach. And I guess it's like with a lot of organizations, they look to automate and they consider what skills they have available to do that and make it happen. Because I think everybody at the moment is looking to automate, looking to digitize, but how can they make it happen? And ideally, if you have a no-code tool that's easy to use, that basically is targeted more at the business user, the business process owner, to go in there and digitize, that can help you a lot in terms of getting up and started, and also progressing that to cover off more and more processes in your organization. But we'd certainly say that give FlowForma a look, as you know what, often your business processes are more than one or two little steps. They often involve more than one step. We'll show you one later on. And you can really put things together very quickly using FlowForma. Just to talk about, one of the big advantages of digitizing processes is that you can measure them. You can actually measure how effective they are. And it's different to many other things that you might include in your digital transformation. So your digital strategy, for example, might be to deploy Microsoft 365 to get benefit from, using digital tools like Teams, which is fantastic. But it's difficult sometimes to measure the effectiveness of those tools. But if you apply a tool that actually automates business processes, you can measure how long the process is taking, how much work is going in to achieving your business goal, and that really makes a difference. And one of our customers, Abingdon and Whitney College, did just that. They did some detailed analysis of some of the processes that were paper-based originally, and then they decided to digitize them, and they measured the effectiveness of it. And as you can see there, just with those 5 processes, there were significant savings made. So trips and visits, 1,665 hours. It's quite a significant saving, and it amounts to maybe 2.5 people in terms of resources. So, it really makes you more competitive, but you see a difference on the bottom line as well in terms of the actual saving that you're making by automating. So we'll just move on to our next prediction, which is that 2/3 of enterprise organizations encountered broken processes during the pandemic. And that's mainly because a lot of the processes in the past typically involved paper exchange between actors in the process. And of course, paper is no longer an effective medium with the pandemic. It transfers the virus, etc. And also, the other thing is that you were in an office environment, you were next to the people that you were working with. You were able to lean over and say, oh, hey, could you help out with this? Could you process this piece of information? You don't have that regular kind of contact. So having an automation platform that pushes the process along, that pushes information from one person to another towards achieving that business goal, really helps you. And we talked there about broken processes, the impact of a broken process. Let's say you go through a process and you get to step 5 in the process, and for whatever reason you can't complete it. That means you do not achieve the business goal. It has a really significant impact. So a single broken process can have a massive business impact. And the way to solve that is to have an automated digital solution accessible from everywhere, so that you can actually access it regardless of what environment you're in. If you have your mobile phone, you can access it from there, and you can keep the process moving at all times. And the system is assisting you to do that as well. So definitely broken processes are a big issue in 2020. They will continue to be an issue in 2021 because not everybody has successfully implemented a solution. So you need to look at a business process automation platform that's going to help you digitize those processes and keep your business moving. Just on that, there's a few points we'd like to discuss which are kind of related to this. I'll kick off, I guess, Andy, with the first one there, empowering business process owners with no code. So I've kind of talked about this already. One of the things you got to do is get started and start digitizing the business processes that you have. And very often that's a challenge because it requires IT involvement, IT resources. So why not use your business resources instead? Spread the challenge out among your business resources and have those business resources start to construct digital process solutions. And I'm going to show you a little bit about that later on in a demonstration, because at the moment you're probably thinking, no, we can't do that. That's impossible. Well, we've had a lot of success with FlowForma in doing that. And as I say, I'll show you a little bit later on. Maybe Andy, you could have a talk there about collaborating.
Sure, yeah, collaborating with purpose. I guess for us, using Teams effectively offers so much more than just being a simple replacement for Skype. I think a lot of businesses took Teams on board just to upgrade from Skype, but the platform itself is a lot more than that. A couple of examples is it's a lot easier to collaborate compared to the incessant use of email. You've got your conversation history, you've got a common document storage area available, and it can essentially become a one-stop shop that can host your automation apps. That's a few examples of how Teams as a platform can really help you collaborate as a business with purpose. It's a lot less time consuming as well to collaborate internally and externally. So there's many benefits there with collaborating with Teams as one example. And that leads me on to measuring your success. You've got Power BI there that can measure your success very well. That can be utilized to complement all the data that is being processed and stored from process automation. Power BI can provide a rich interactive visualization and business intelligence capability, and the interface itself is simple enough to work with end users to process and create their own reports as well. So it's a very valuable tool to have for measuring success.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Power BI is a great tool, really easy to use, and the visualizations that you can make with it are fantastic.
It's,
The one thing I'd say is that, of course, your reporting tool is only as good as the data behind it. And in terms of FlowForma, what it contributes is it collects the data in a controlled way and applies validation to that data as it's being collected. So no matter what device you're collecting it on, the system can actually validate that information and make sure it's right and store it away in a database. And then you can bring in Power BI and produce those fantastic visualizations. Um,
yeah,
so I think measuring your success is key, and you get a great set of data in terms of the process data and also the process metrics stored automatically with FlowForma to give you that good data source to build those great looking reports in Power BI.
absolutely, Paul. And I think the next bit, the moving from paper to data, we could probably talk for about half an hour about that. So we'll try and keep it as short as we can.
Yeah,
Um, I think for me, um, we've seen a lot more requests coming in terms of OCR, which is optical character recognition,
yeah,
and RPA, which is robotic process automation. That essentially enables you to capture data that's been moved from maybe the more traditional storage areas that you have into the cloud. It can take documentation, break it up, images of PDFs, etc., can be broken up, tagged. Makes it a lot easier to manage your data. It makes all your files a lot easier to search as well. And we're seeing a lot more of that in the last few months. I think combining that OCR and RPA with the no-code solutions that Paul talks about, that's a very effective way to optimize and transform your business operations. Absolutely.
yeah, absolutely. I'd agree with that, Andy. And yeah, like it's definitely a challenge to get away from that paper. We've seen it so much in old businesses, but if you take something like construction, where it's very paper focused, moving from literally pieces of paper forms to electronic format, it's interesting. It can be a challenge from an adoption point of view as well. So if you have a system that's kind of easy to adopt, that promotes people to use it because it's the same no matter which device they access and all that kind of, it can help things a lot. Um, but yeah, there's lots of aspects to it. As you said, Andy, at the beginning there, God, we could talk for 30 minutes just on this point alone. Um,
No,
and then
absolutely.
on increasing like remote working productivity. Once you have that framework in place, you have teams in place, for example, you're providing that framework for people to collaborate and work together. But adding a layer on top of that, providing like FlowForma on top of Teams, what FlowForma does is it relates all that activity in Teams to business process steps and achieving business goals. So again, it's like what I said at the beginning in terms of like automation driving digital transformation. It's basically showing a value to the work that you're doing in Teams because you're able to associate that work with a business process. And the business process achieves the goal, and you can track it all through reporting, report it through Power BI, etc. So all of it together is a really strong solution that shows measurable benefits at the end of the day. So we'll kick off to our fourth and final prediction, which is automation will advance to support one for home workers. Now, what does that mean? I think the key part of this is to say that automation uh, is here to stay. Basically, we've talked about these predictions in the context of the pandemic situation. And for sure, the pandemic is driving change. But once that change happens, it's here to stay. The prediction seems to say that, you know, a significant number of workers will continue to work at home even when the pandemic is over
Mhm.
because of all these enabling technologies that people have realized, oh, well, actually, you know what? I can work from home and still be productive. So I'm going to continue to do that. So the requirement of 2020, if you like, will continue in 2021 and 22 and beyond. And the indications are that there will be a cultural change here where people are continuing to work from home. And you can see that everywhere you look. And there's been lots of surveys done out there already of people, what would their preferences be? Would you like to continue to work at home, or would you like to go back to the office? And a significant percentage say they want to continue from working from home. And certainly the feedback that I see is that companies are quite happy for them to do that now. So a hybrid model might be put in place. Sorry, Andy, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that's a really good point in terms of a cultural change. I think that's one of the main points here as well. Obviously, with the advance to support 1 in 4 home workers, one of the main points here is the having a well-managed, effective user adoption training in place as well. You know, supporting the staff that are working from home. They sometimes feel a little isolated, especially if they're being getting new tools that are constantly being updated. So enabling them to do their job more effectively is going to improve all of these automations, and what we've been talking about the last 20 minutes. It's going to improve all of that with that, you know, the appropriate training that's being put in place.
Yeah. So what I'll do now is I'll move on to our demonstration. So let me just do that. So what we'll show you now is FlowForma working in the Teams environment to begin with. So hopefully everybody can see my screen. And what we're looking at here is Teams. So it's a straightforward Teams, as you will all know all about, where you can make calls and you can share files and you can work together and collaborate, and that's all fantastic. But what we've done is we've built an application that sits inside Teams that shows you FlowForma. And what you're seeing here is a dashboard where you can kick off new processes, and you can also see work lists below. So I can see that I've got like one NCR waiting determination, and I can click on 7 forms awaiting my input. I'll see all the processes that are waiting for me to do something with. So this is like a dashboard view where I can see my workload, and I can kick off new processes as well. So let's say I kick off this NCR example here. It's showing me a process. An NCO, by the way, is a non-conformance report. It's a fairly standardized process that you see across in many industries. But FlowForma obviously supports as many processes as you like. It's a flexible design environment. You can build a solution that actually matches your particular way of working, your particular resource pool. And when you open up or kick off a process, this is the view that you see, where you're seeing a thing here called the step bar. It's showing you all the steps in the process that are required to be completed to achieve the business goal. And each of these steps is assigned to a resource in your organization, so different people can do different steps. And the system automatically manages the progression of the business process as you move through the steps and capture data. Speaking of data, the data is captured below. And here we can see we have to capture an NCR title. It's mandatory. There's some help text associated with it. So I'm just going to put in test here. I can then indicate the type of NCR that it is and the categorization and so on. And as you fill in this information, the system executes things called business rules in the background. What does that mean? Basically, it can validate and carry out actions, validate the data and carry out actions in the background, like sending emails, pulling information from a back-end system and so on. So it's automatically in the background helping you to achieve that business goal by carrying out actions. You can also display various pieces of text in the screen and so on and make the form look nice, etc. And you must enter all the mandatory fields. So for example, if I go down to the very bottom here and say, okay, I'm finished, I want to move on. And when I press submit, it automatically tells me that, you haven't entered certain key pieces of data. So I'm going to enter in my data. And then the form is dynamic. So if I want to select a project, I can say yes. It shows me some more project details that I can be capturing. Sorry, just here. So the form is dynamic. You can capture as many bits of data as you like. And down the end here, I've got one final piece that I've got to tick, which is, have I entered all relevant information? Yes, I have. Okay, so I submit. And the system automatically then moves on to the next step in the process. So the system is basically managing that workflow process in the background so that everything is moved on and all the data is captured relevant to the current step. Okay, so it's managing all that data in the background. The system supports a very wide range of data types. You can capture things like documents and capture images on your mobile phone, for example, annotate those images and capture lots of different data. All that data is stored securely in SharePoint. And configuring the system is very quick and easy, so that you can build not just NCR processes, but any type of process using a configuration tool. Now, to see a configuration tool, I'm going to pop over to my browser here, and here's our browser interface. And as you can see, on a browser, the system looks exactly the same. But I've got a few more options here. I can do some configuration and show you what the configuration looks like. So this is our no-code tool that allows you to configure whatever process you need. And in this instance, I've just opened the NCR process that we were just looking at. This is what it looks like. I see all my steps in the right process. Inside my steps, I see all these things called questions. They're the pieces of data. And then on the steps, I have things called business rules. They're the things that run in the background that I was talking about. So in this case, it generates a document, it sends an email to the customer and supplier and so on. So the system is configured using no code. What does that mean? It has a forms-based interface. You don't need to understand any complex coding at all. If I wanted to add a new step into this process, I just click on plus step here and I fill in a form. So NCR approval. And when I press save, it automatically adds that step in as the last step of the process, but I can drag it around. So let's say I wanted it to be the third step in the process, just drag it up. And then I can add in a question, which is a piece of data. And there's lots of different question types supported. So I'm just going to say, do you approve this NCR? And then you know what? The answer that I'm going to get to that is going to be a yes or a no. So I'm going to scroll down through all the different types of answers I support and then just pick yes or no. And you know what? I'm going to make it required and put in some help text and save. And then that question is automatically added in. And the very next time that a person goes into that NCR process, they'll see that new step there and they'll be requested to answer that question when they move on to it. So it's a really simple system to configure, and it's a very user-friendly system in terms of the way it looks and feels, so that it's very easy to adopt, and adoption is key. So FlowForma supports the interface via a browser, via Teams, and also via a mobile app, so that you can work remotely and basically fill in those forms and move those processes forward from any location that you're in. So that's a very, very short demonstration there of what FlowForma does. Feel free to call us and we'll give you an hour-long demonstration with a whole lot more detail in it. But I just wanted to give you help you understand what digital process automation actually looks like in reality. So what we'll do now is just give a quick summary and talk about what our recommendations are for process success in 21. So assume rapid and agile automation is the new normal. This isn't just to do with the pandemic. The pandemic has accelerated this, but it's here to stay. And basically the people who digitize more effectively will become more competitive and they will end up the winners. So overcome demand for automation in 21 by empowering your business people to digitize, because you have to start digitizing and do it quickly. And just being dependent on IT resources or IT vendors to do it entirely is probably going to be too much of a demand. The IT vendors are fantastic at supplying certain aspects and still will be absolutely required in the equation. But if you want to digitize at scale and digitize quickly, you need to find a different way. And we would suggest that business people can help you do that. And make 2021 the year you say goodbye to manual invisible paper spreadsheet processes. Basically, start collecting that data, start reporting on that data, start using that data to make you more effective and drive better decision making in your organization. And also drive better customer experiences by engaging them in the process. You can extend those digital processes not just to people within your organization, but to other organizations and to client base and to suppliers and so on. So start doing that to make your processes more effective. And I guess the key thing is that you'd have to have that stable foundation. Andy, you might have more to say on that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's also been a common theme. The automation and having that platform in place first is vital to get this off the ground. Having that cloud platform in place, it follows Microsoft best practice, or the minimum, having an audit or review of what is currently in place before embarking on these automated processes is very important. It's all well and good having fantastic processes, but if the platform that's in place currently either can't handle it from a hardware perspective or it's just not been set up correctly, it's almost doomed to failure. So spending that time and reviewing what you currently have in place letting us have a conversation with you, have an audit of what's there, will really benefit your business long term. Because now's the time to really focus on what you currently have in place and what can be improved. And, it's something that we can definitely help with.
Yeah, absolutely. Having that solid foundation there is critical to everything. And that foundation then is driven by, business process sitting on the top of it. But the
Exactly.
foundation is just so important. Yeah. So I just say that just to close that if you visit our website, www.flowforma.com, you can find out more about FlowForma, and also we can facilitate you taking a trial of FlowForma. You can try it out yourself and see if it works for you.
That's great. Thanks very much, guys. I really enjoyed listening there, and I think your tips at the end will definitely be really helpful for our audience. Before we go to the Q&A, I just want to let the audience know that they can download the Forrester Predictions Report from their resource centre on their screen. And as Paul mentioned earlier, we can also give a live demonstration. So if you're looking for something a bit more in depth, reach out to us at the end of the webinar, or you can request a trial at www.flowforma.com/trial. But we might just pop on to a few questions now, if that's okay, Paul and Andy. So let me just get the first question up here now. So we have a question from Sarah, and she asks where does she start? So she wants to know how to start with digitizing. I think that's the question she's asking. So yeah, if you could answer that one, maybe Paul will start off with you. Could you answer Sarah's question?
Yeah, sure. So the first thing is to have that foundation in place, and that for us that means SharePoint Online and Microsoft 365. And then once you have that foundation in place and it's properly configured, look to FlowForma. You can install FlowForma very quickly with minimal IT support, and then you can start to digitize your business processes. And those business processes can be digitized with support from us and from Appetite from Business, and we can show you very quickly how to do it. I think the important thing to say is that it's not difficult. It's one of the great things about modern cloud solutions is that you can get up and running really quickly, and with the speed of you being able to use FlowForma, you can actually start measuring those returns really quickly. And I think that's so important with digital transformation initiatives, that you have to be able to show that it's actually giving a benefit to your business, and that's what we're all about. And I know, with Microsoft 365, Andy, I'm sure you would agree that that's what Office 365 is all about as well. Get up and running quickly, and start
Yeah,
seeing the benefits as quickly as possible.
absolutely. And just to kind of finish off on that point, yeah, for Microsoft 365, we'd recommend that audit to get to grips with your current setup. You can have a conversation about what your pain points are within the business, what you're struggling to try and do in terms of automation, with regard to your data as well. How is that currently stored? It's something that we can definitely help with. And then we'll provide assistance and consultation and provide all the improvements that we've outlined within that. And the perfect place to take on business tools like FlowForma, as Paul showed with the Teams integration, which is fantastic.
Great. And the next question then comes from James. So Paul, I know you mentioned Power Platform there earlier on. So he's
Yeah.
just asking what the difference in licensing is. So Andy, do you want to take that one? Do you want to cover that one first?
Yeah, it's almost how long's a piece of string with licensing sometimes. I think what you have to be wary of is understanding what you're paying for and what you're getting. It's very easy to sign up for something and you want to see more features, and then that involves more costs. So you really have to kind of take a step back and understand exactly what it is you want to do, and then kind of plan for that. Because Power Platform's great, but as Paul mentioned, if you're not careful, that prices can escalate quite quickly. So, having a good kind of overview as to what exactly you want to do from the beginning definitely helps in terms of the licensing. SharePoint and Microsoft 365, there's various licenses there. It kind of stems back to what I was saying before in terms of if you want to use Power Platform, A lot of that will have trials, which is fantastic, but you have to be wary of the P1, the P2, the other licenses that stem off it. So yeah, there's a few caveats there.
Yeah, I mean, from a FlowForma perspective, um, we know that Microsoft licensing is really quite a complicated area. So as Andy said, absolutely, you need to know where you want to get to, first of all, and then maybe speak to people like Appetite for Business who can advise you then on what is your likely licensing cost for this kind of solution. And with FlowForma, it's different. With FlowForma, we keep our licensing really, really straightforward. There's just two license levels, and basically it's kind of a user-based pricing. How many people are using the system? That's all you need to know. So in terms of like your solution complexity, you can actually build very complex solutions in FlowForma, and you'll see no increase in license fee. It's just a flat structure. You kind of get everything straight away. But the only thing then is the number of users. If you're a large consumer of business processes, well, you pay a little bit more with FlowForma, but the same could be said for Microsoft, which also has user-based licensing. So
Okay, great. And then we might just squeeze in one more question if that's okay, guys. So we have a question here from someone saying we've lots of remote workers working on building sites. Would you recommend an application? So Paul, maybe you could answer that one there.
yeah, so we've got a number of clients in the construction sector. So in fact, it's an area of focus for us. And what we do is we have an app, a mobile app that you can use on Android and iOS devices, and that gives you access to your FlowForma environment. So similar to the Teams app where you can see the processes and you can kick off processes and fill in forms and so on. You can do that on mobile too, and you can create processes for whatever you like. Now we've got lots of construction companies who have had a push to move away from paper-based processes. What they've found is that FlowForma is a great tool for doing that because it's so quick to take a A4 sheet of paper with lots of boxes on it and basically build out an electronic form in FlowForma with the same. And then it's available on your mobile device straight away. You don't have to do anything special to make it mobile. And then our mobile app as well supports offline access, which is a key requirement, I guess, in the construction industry, because obviously we'd be working on remote sites. So yes, so I'd say that basically that's what to do, to look for a tool that has a mobile app that allows you to work from any environment. And of course, it would affect not just construction, also any remote working scenario.
Yeah, I was going to say that would work perfectly in oil and gas as well. A lot of engineers out in the field or offshore, etc. It would work ideally.
Yeah.
Great. And I know I said that was the last one, but I have another good one, so I'm going to throw that one in too. So Jacob here, he's asking, can you export the data from the forms, and how can you make the data look? So Paul, that's maybe a bit more of a technical question, a FlowForma techie question, if you want to take that.
Yeah, if I take it as a technical question, at least to begin with. So FlowForma stores all of the data from the forms inside your SharePoint environment. So it's all customer data is inside your SharePoint environment, and that is managed by you. And companies like Appetite can advise you on how best to manage that, etc. Right? But the key thing is all stored inside your SharePoint environment. And then FlowForma provides a standard way of extracting that information. So if you want to consume that information inside, for example, Microsoft Power BI to build out nice reporting, absolutely you can do that. So anything that's captured on an electronic form, like the ones I showed you earlier on, that's all stored inside SharePoint. And then we provide a way of just very easily reporting on that in tools like Microsoft Power BI, or indeed extracting it for any other reason. So we have clients in the construction sector, for example, who participate in construction projects, and at the end of the project, they need to simply offload all the data that they collected to their client, right? So they built a building, they executed, 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 processes, and they want to export all of the data and the process information in one go to the client at the end of the job. We support that too. So lots of options there.
Great. Okay. Well, we have a few more there, but we'll leave it at that, and we'll get someone to respond to your question if it wasn't answered. But I want to thank Andy and Paul for their time today. And again, if you have any questions, you can reach out to either of us, and you can connect with us all on LinkedIn as well. Okay. Thanks very much for your chat, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.